Hey, folks, this is Tommy. I'm Tommy Highway, and I'm here with Tim. We are with UFO Man Channel today. This is a live show. We've got a great show planned for you today, folks. We are doing our part in America to stamp out butthurt, and that's why we've got our masks on tonight, folks. We'd like to thank everybody for showing. That's great. Tim's got a great show plan. We've got some killer videos for you, and we're going to get into the whole Roswell thing. And we think we've got some new information here, or at least some information that we can approach from a different way, that hopefully shed some light on the whole Roswell thing and what we really think went on there. Tim?
Yeah, I have an interview that's going to last about 31 minutes that I need to play because it is a significant piece of information in regards to the second crash that occurred on the same evening as the Roswell disc that crashed on the Mac Brazel ranch. This is a little known crash. It's near St. Augustin, New Mexico, just outside of Socorro and just outside of Aztec. So it's kind of like halfway in between. What we need to do is take a good look at this. Besides doing this, we are also going to have a free 24 by 36 inch wall poster giveaway where we're going to show you the posters that are going to be given away. And then we're also going to give you instructions on how to enter. Okay, I think maybe we'll do that first. So let's see here if I can do that. Bring us over. Let's see here if I can go to banners, overlays. I got to find my overlay here. Here we go. Here are the instructions. Pick the number of your poster selection. Send your name, address, and email to my email, which is posted in my summary. It will either be posted in the summary after the posting of this live stream, or you can find it in any video that I've already posted. Come back on September 5th for my live drawing during my live stream starting at 8 p.m. Central Daylight Time. We will pick the winner live and announce the winner live. So you will see that everyone has an equal and fair chance at winning the posters. Now, let's go to the poster choices. You can take a look at them. Here they are. And you just pick a number and send it with your email, your address, and your name to my email that is listed in the summary. That way I know which poster you're interested in. These are 24 by 36 inches, so 24 inches across by 36 inches high. They are on thick poster paper, so they are quality made. I have several myself. In fact, you can probably see one on the live stream when I go back to the main screen. But these posters are excellent quality, so pick one out and take your chances. So here are the instructions again. What I'm going to do is after the live stream, I'm going to put a timestamp as to where these instructions are in the live stream, and you'll be able to refer back to it later. Okay. All right, going on. What we are going to do now is we are going to play the video. Now, the video that I have is Proof from Roswell. I labeled it. The reason I did this is because it is, hold on a second here. What the heck? Sorry, guys. Here we go. Proof from Roswell. Now, what I'm going to ask everyone to do is turn up your volume when you watch this, because the interview was taken in 1991 and their audio equipment was not the best. So I would say turn up your audio all the way so that you can hear what the gentleman is saying. But you need to hear this because this is not as well known as the Roswell crash itself. Although it is a crash that happened on the same night, indicating that possibly the Roswell disk and this one collided, and this one crashed further down range, closer to Socorro. So here we go. We're going to play the video. Well, hold on a second here.
You state your name, please.
My name is Gerald.
Hold on a second here. Having some issues. Here we go.
Anderson.
Where were you born?
I was born October 4th, 1941, Indianapolis, Indiana.
Okay, and give me a summary of what happened in 1947 with regard to a crash on Stanton, New Mexico.
Well, we had just moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico on July 4th, 1947. This was approximately the day before we went out on the plane with Stanton, Augustin, with my Uncle Ted, my cousin Victor, my father, our brother Glenn, and myself. We drove down to the plains of San Augustin, which is west of Socorro, New Mexico, in the Magdalena Daddle area. And we were down there looking for banded and moss agate, which, according to my Uncle Ted and my cousin Victor, was prevalent in the area. And my brother being an amateur rock hound and wanted to get some of this. And it was a way of showing us around the area. And they had relatives down in Magdalena that they wanted to introduce us to. So we had gone down there, and we got down in the Horse Springs area and had driven off onto the plain down an old rutted road for a mile or so, and it seemed like a long ways. We parked the car, got out of the car, and walked down the hillside of the semi forest, I guess you could say. It had pinyon trees and scrub oak and stuff like that on it. And we walked, well, not scrub oak, but cedar, and walked down the hillside into an arroyo, a dry wash, and then walked south down a dry wash toward where the agates were supposed to be at. And as we came around a bend in the arroyo that had pinyon and cedar trees growing on it, we were able to see farther ahead down the arroyo, and on the next ridge line, there was a large silver disc-shaped object was embedded in the side of the ridge line. And there was debris and wreckage and stuff strewn about the area, but mainly this thing was intact. I would estimate its size from an adult perspective to be something like 35 feet in diameter. I've heard other people who were there say they thought it was like 50 feet, but as an adult, I would say about 35 feet in diameter, quite large. When we got up to it, there were 4 bodies there, not human. There was 2 of them who were obviously dead. One of them was obviously very badly injured, and one of them apparently suffered no ill effects, or didn't appear to be injured. One was ambulatory, was mobile. I was just sitting there next to the one that was still alive. That appeared to be
Were they right next to the vehicle?
right next to it, right under the edge of it. And this craft had apparently come in from the east, bounced off one ridge line, went plowing through this arroyo area, and then crashed into the ridge line and embedded itself. And they were sitting back under the edge. It was kind of tilted up like this, and they were sitting back under the edge here. And I'm assuming that this one creature that was all right had laid this material on the ground, but it looked like unrolled tinfoil that these other 3 creatures were laying on, like it was trying like you do a person that's shot and put them on a blanket kind of a thing. And apparently it had some boxes there around it, and had apparently been trying to give first aid or help these other creatures when we first got there. And as we approached, creature drew back like this, like it was in fear of us, like we were going to hurt it. And it wasn't very long, you know, trying to communicate with the adults were. And it seemed to calm down and just sat there and kind of looked back and forth, watching them, apparently trying to figure out what was going on. Like,
What did it look like a little bit more?
these creatures, all of them were about 4 foot tall, 4.5 feet tall. They had very large heads that were shaped larger on the top. They kind of tapered down, not to a real sharp point, but just tapered down where they were thin. And they had very large, oval shaped or almond shaped, I guess you could say, black eyes. They were so shiny, they had almost a bluish tint to them when the light reflected off them. Their skin coloration, the best way I could describe that is kind of a bluish tinted milky white. It looked like someone in shock. And the ones that were laying on the ground really looked more that way, more blue.
How about ears, nose, mouth?
No, there was no visible ears on the creatures, except like if you was just to cover your ear like this, to where there was just a rise there and then a hole, without your earlobe and the rest of the ear there.
How about nose?
It was the nose was very small, almost imperceptible, just like 2 holes straight in, and the lips were just a straight line. It was like a cut, and you couldn't see any visible lips like we have. It was just a slit, and
What
they
hair
never
color?
made a sound. Pardon?
What hair color?
There was no hair. They were
Okay.
completely bald.
And no sounds?
I never heard a sound of one, not out of any of the creatures, including one of us.
Did you see fingers?
Yeah, they had fingers like this. They didn't have a little finger. They just had the thumb and 3 extra digits, except the center digit was longer, and the other 2 were about the same size. They were very long and slender. They looked very delicate. And I've made the statement before, and I'll make it again. I think it would have made an excellent violinist because of the structure of their hands. They were wearing one-piece suits. All of them were dressed exactly the same. It was sort of a real shiny, silverish gray color.
No zippers, buttons?
No, I saw no zippers, no buttons.
Insignia?
No insignia. The only thing that was different, they all had this, but the only thing that was different from the silvery gray thing suit was that down the seam on it, like it was a seam on the shoulder, and around the collar it was trimmed in what appeared to be maroon, like cording. Then the suits were continuous with their footgear. You could see right about this area down, it seemed to be less pliable than it was up here, like this was a stiffer area, like it was boots or shoes or something. But they were all dressed exactly the same.
Okay, so you and your family are talking back and forth, wondering what was going on. What did your family say? I mean, did anybody say anything?
Yeah, my brother, one of the first remarks I heard he made was, that's a goddamn spaceship. There was bodies up there, and I was told not to go up there, which I did. And
How old was your brother at the time?
he was in his early 20s, I think 20, 21, something.
He was a lot older than you were.
Oh, yes. When we got out there, I kind of meandered off to one side. This thing was cocked up, and I was standing here. The bodies were here, and everybody else was kind of down here, except my cousin Victor was over here playing, looking in this gaping hole on the side of this disc, and it's shaped just like a discus, except for a round dome that was up on top, and there was this big gaping gash in here where you could see inside. It looked like a double hall.
How big length?
The dome? Well, it covered the greater majority from the center of the craft out. It was just like a gaping hole in there. And I'm thinking, it's like about 30 feet, 35 feet diameter, so we're talking about 17 feet maybe.
Oh,
And most of that one side was ripped open. You could see inside, and you could see another double hull in there, and there was just rows of components that was on there, and there was lights that flashed on and off. Some of them were steady, some were flashing. There was a lot of debris and stuff hanging out of the hole. There was evidence that there had apparently been fire. It looked like it had been burnt along the edge. The gash.
Now, this wasn't a gash that could have been caused by the thing coming into the ground. It wasn't at the leading edge of the vehicle.
No, this was in the side, like, it almost appeared it was elliptical. It almost appeared as if something the same shape as the disc we were looking at had hit that same, had hit the disc and left an imprint that pretty closely approximated the outside diameter of the disc itself. And it appeared to be caved in.
Okay.
And kind of like, you hit it like this and just crumpled and caved in and ripped it open.
Okay, so you're there, you take all this and everybody's mystified. What were the circumstances outside? Hot, cold?
Very, very hot. Well, to me, being the first time in New Mexico and coming back east, that dry heat was just like being inside of an oven. It was unbelievable to me. And that was the odd part about this thing. The closer you got to it, the cooler it was. And standing under it in the shade there, next to these creatures' bodies, it was like refrigerated air conditioning. And
did you feel air coming out of this thing? Or?
No, it was just like it was NVIDIA. And I remember reaching up and putting my hand on the side of it, and I think I was afraid I was going to hit my head because there was enough room for me as a small child, I was approximately the same size as these creatures to walk up under there and stand there, but I kind of did like that, put my hand up against this thing.
What did it feel like?
It was ice cold. It felt like it just came out of a freezer.
Was it smooth? Was it rough?
It was very smooth. It had a very smooth texture to it. It was obviously made out of metal. It was very solid, and it was very cold, ice cold. And there was a smell in the area. It smelled volatile, acrid, like acetone. And that seemed to be coming out of that gash, that smell. But the closer you got to this thing, the cooler it was. So I kind of remained there, and I guess while they were over here, my father and my Uncle Ted and my brother, and Uncle Ted was trying to talk to this thing in Spanish, and of course it didn't understand a word he said. And Dad tried to talk to it, and then they tried, sign language, and that didn't work. And I don't know, for some reason, I just I reached down and touched it, this one that was laying next to me. And when I touched it, I realized, I jumped back. It scared me and startled me because I suddenly realized that these weren't dolls. I thought they were plastic dolls. And I was still in my mind that these are moving dolls until I touched it. And I realized, this was a dead thing. I'd seen dead relatives before. Unfortunately, I made a mistake on that, touching them relatively mechanically. I just knew this was a dead thing. And it scared me, and I ran around behind my father and my uncle. And this thing was sitting there on the ground, and it kept looking back and forth. And it just had its hand like it's flat. It just kept looking back and forth between the three of them, and like it was trying to understand. And all of a sudden, it just turned. It looked right straight at me, between my Uncle Ted and myself. And this is when it was just like an explosion of things in my head. Things I started, feeling just terrible depression, and loneliness, and fear, and just, awful feelings. It just suddenly burst into my mind, and I don't know if that meant that it was communicating with me, and I was the only one there to communicate with because I was a kid. I don't know. I turned and ran. I ran across the arroyo and up on the area that it had bounced off of during the crash. I was just standing there looking down at the scene, and my family, and off in the distance I could see cattle grazing. I could see a windmill. I could see dust trails out on the playa, out on the plains out there. And I was there for a while, and then I came back down. And I guess we were there. Victor was when I got back down there. Victor was up in the crack, and Ted yelled at him to get out of there. And Glenn went over and grabbed him by the belt and jerked him off.
That's your brother.
Yeah, and jerked him off and said, "Get out of there! You can cause this thing to explode and kill us all." And of course, he went crawling around in there. I was kind of standing off to one side looking. That's why I knew that there was, I could look off these rocks that I was standing on right into this thing. That's why I knew, about the lights and the components and stuff. And then I heard other people talking. I turned and there was a group of people coming up the arroyo from out on the plain from the south. They had come up there, and of course they walked up and was talking. And
How many?
there was an older man and 5 younger students.
Boys, girls?
There was 3 boys and 2 girls, and they were all, introducing, talking to my father and my uncle and my brother.
What did the older one look like?
The
Man.
leader of this group,
Yeah.
the man, he was a very tall man, very big man. He was wearing a pith helmet when he first came up, one of those kind of explorer helmets. And he was bald, and I know that because he had taken it off and he had done this, a couple times with handkerchief and put it back on. He was a balding man. And he had a round face. He was very ruddy complected. He was a big man. And he apparently was a doctor because they kept calling him doctor. And as I understand it, it was an archaeological group that was out there on some kind of summer thing. And they talked, and he apparently was able to speak several foreign languages. And he tried to talk to this creature several times in different languages, again, to no avail.
How did he happen to be there? Had he seen the thing?
Well, they claimed that they said they saw this thing come down the night before, of flaming, and they thought it was a meteorite. And they had talked about, well, in the morning, we'll go over there and see this, where this meteor came down. So that's what they thought it was. And when the sun came up the next morning, and they got about their business and got up, and somebody looked over and said, they saw all the shiny metal and stuff across the plains there, and they realized it wasn't a meteorite, it may have been an airplane, and they crashed. So they all decided to go over there and see if there was anybody alive, that was hurt that needed help.
They had driven over?
No, they walked over, apparently, the way I understand it. And it's quite a ways across that plain, so it had to take a very long time to do this. Or they may have had a vehicle, I don't know. That's an assumption, I think, on my part.
Okay, so they're around with
But
the
they
family.
came across the plains, nonetheless. I'm not sure if they drove or not. I didn't hear anything.
And then somebody else showed up.
Yeah, they were down there just, 15, maybe 20 minutes tops, and they were picking up things, some of the students. And this Dr. Buskirk, that they called him, this one girl went up and said, look, doctor, wouldn't this make a beautiful ring? And she was holding what looked like a red rod, a red tube of some kind of a silvery red. And he kind of snapped at her, put that down, Agnes. You don't know what that is. I think it hurts you. Just don't pick this stuff up. And she kind of said, well, yeah, okay, doctor. And then he went back to what he was doing, and she walked away and put it in the pocket. And a lot of them were doing this, sort of picking up things and feeling things. I was picking up things and feeling things. It was all kinds of material, metal, stuff laying around. Then we heard it. I heard it. Well, we all heard it. The sound of a motor coming out of the truck. And I went back up the incline there to the ridge line, and I could see out there, and there was a truck coming up. It was an old pickup truck. It was sort of a beige color or a tan color thing, and it had a whip antenna on it. And it stopped, and this guy got out, and he's wearing brown clothes. He's got boots on, and he's wearing a straw hat, just like the kind Harry Truman always wore. And he had wire-rimmed glasses. He was a big man, and he looked exactly like Harry Truman to me. And I'd seen in the movie Tone News that
He was president then.
yeah, I was well aware who Harry Truman was, so everybody was. He was kind of a hero, And this guy looked like him, except bigger. And I don't think he didn't look as old. His hair was kind of light gray. And he walked over there, and they got to talking, he with everybody. And he told them he worked out on the plains out there, and that he made maps, and that he had seen the wreckage from out there on the plains, and he saw the people, and he thought it was a plane wreck, and something was going on. He came over there to see, and he hadn't been there but just a very, very few minutes when we heard all kinds of motors and engines straining and stuff, And here comes a military car with a big white star on the side of it, followed by a 6x, which is a military with a kind of canvas wagon, canvas thing over it, and it's full of soldiers that got guns. And right behind that was what we call a 4x, which is like a medium-sized Jeep truck situation, and it had two big high whip antennas, all kinds of radio gear in the back, and a guy back there with earphones and stuff on, and he's, working these radios, and they all pulled up and stopped. And
Which direction had they come from?
they came from the north, from the Horse Springs area. Right?
So they could have
south.
come off the highway there.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's exactly how they did. They could come off the highway the same way we did. Well, in the meantime, when it stopped, this black soldier, the sergeant, and the reason I know he was a sergeant, my brother told me he was, and he got out of this car, and then a guy got out on the other side, and Glenn said he was a captain. He told me later he was a captain. And this guy had orange-red hair, and all the soldiers then came running over there, pointing guns at people, and telling them, get away, get away, get away, And when this creature saw these people, the military, he went nuts. He went into an absolute panic, worse than what he did when he saw us.
Did he move around, or just his eyes?
He just
Oh,
went crazy, and it was like he was looking
Fearful.
like he was looking for a place to run and hide.
but he never got up.
Never got up. He never left the one injured one next to him. And this redheaded officer, this guy was a real butthole. He made all the threats. He threatened to have people shot. They did move
To
away.
everybody?
Oh yeah, get away, get away. We'll shoot. Get away from there. This is a military secret. Just screaming and hollering. And he told my uncle and my father that if they didn't want to spend the rest of their life in prison, they would never say anything about what they saw there. If they ever wanted to see us kids again, they'd take the kids away, and they'd never see the kids, meaning me and Victor, that we better keep our mouths shut. If we did not, this is what was going to happen. They were threatening people and pushing people.
The students as well? And Dr.
Oh yeah,
Busker?
they were hustling everybody. And one of the soldiers pushed my uncle. He had a rifle like this, and he shoved it back like that. Well, that was something you don't do to my uncle Ted. Ted had a violent temper, and he grabbed the rifle and reached over the top and smacked this guy and dropped him right there. Ted had dropped the hat. This guy's a cowboy. He'll hit you in a minute. And of course, when he did that, there was bolts opened, and I guess cocking their rifles, and they're pointing guns at people, and everybody, Busker and Glenn and Dad, grabbed him, pulled him back and got him away. Don't, man, they're going to shoot. Don't do that, trying to stop this. I think we came very close to having some shot. Then they really started threatening, and made the interview.
Does the redhead do all the talking?
Pretty much, except once in a while the sergeant would chime in and make statements like that to other people in response to the redhead. Mainly it was the redheaded.
Was there a name tag?
Yes, there was. And, his name was Armstrong. And I'm not sure if I know that from having read it or know that from remembering it, now being able to read it in my memory, or someone said that to me. But his name was Armstrong. It's right here on his uniform.
Now, they chased you guys away pretty quick.
Yeah, they did. And they herded us up on cattle, and they moved us up the Arroyo back in the direction we'd come from. Over the protest of this Dr. Busker, he said, no, we've got to go the other way. We came from over there. I don't care where you came from. Get your ass up the Arroyo. And they ran us up the Arroyo. And
So you get to your car then.
right, now they take us up the Arroyo, and just below the hill that we came down, they broke us off and moved us up the hill. Now this whole time, no one has ever frisked us down. No one has ever checked our pockets to see if we picked up any of this material. And this girl, Agnes, still has that stuff in her pocket, and some of the other students had stuff. To my knowledge, up to that point, they had not been searched. Whether they did so afterward, I don't know. They never searched us ever. They run us back up the hill, and when we got to where the car was parked, where Dad had parked the car up there, there's a Jeep with a guy sitting in the back, and there's a mounted machine gun in the back of this Jeep, and all these soldiers. The Jeep pulls out. We're told to get in the car. We follow the Jeep, and the soldiers go with us all the way back out to the highway. When we get back out to the highway, they set us right there. They wouldn't let us out of the car. They wouldn't let us move forward. I don't know whether they're making a decision or what. When we got out to the highway, this place was absolutely full of military personnel, military equipment. There was airplanes sitting out there that they had landed on the highway.
Did you see any airplanes when you were back at the site?
Yeah, there was airplanes in the sky, but nobody thought much about it. I didn't think anything about it. I was used to airplanes being in the sky, having been raised in Indianapolis, Indiana, the home of the Northern bomb site. The sky was always full of military aircraft. Never thought nothing about it. And when we get back onto the highway, there's observation aircraft, high-wing aircraft, and there's one, what I know now to be a C-47 sitting there. And how we didn't hear that land is beyond me. And how he landed, well, of course, I guess you could land if you're a good pilot out there. There's no thermal poles or anything. And they had torn the fence down on the north side of that highway. And all this equipment was setting back up there, and that plane was up there, and they were taking stuff out of the plane. There was military ambulances, and there was trucks with wreckers, cranes on it. And there was tankers, like maybe had fuel or water in them. There was just, everywhere you looked, there was military. And
a major recovery operation.
Yeah, it looked like an invasion force. It really did. And they were all wearing these light khaki uniforms. They didn't look like, olive drabs. They were light khaki, and they all had the same patch over there, that kind of blue funny patch with the circles on it was on their shoulder. And
Did you have any clue as to where they came from? Did your brother or your uncle?
No, I don't know where they came from. I don't think anybody ever ascertained that. There were a lot of them had MP patches, and some of them were wearing nightsticks off of these webbed utility belts. They had nightsticks, and they had 45s and holsters, the automatics and full holster. And these were the people who were given most of the orders. They had the road barricaded off out there, and we sat there for a very long time, and we were getting thirsty and everything, and we asked, if we could go back to Horse Springs and get some water. Oh, no, you can't go through there. And right after that, they said, no, you just turn around and you head out of here now, and you go to Socorro, and this is a redhead again. You keep your mouth shut, just keep going, and don't look back.
Okay. That was the video from St. Augustin, New Mexico. Happened the same evening as the Roswell crash. So, Donald, when you were mentioning the small oval-shaped disc with a space cut out of the back like a great bite, with 4 EBEs, 3 dead, ejected from the craft, and 1 still alive, which later died, that was Roswell. That was the Mac Brazel ranch crash. On the same evening, the one that crashed into the ridge line, outside of St. Augustin, New Mexico, was actually the second disc that crashed on the same evening as the Roswell one. So it's not talked about as much because I think the fact that the ship itself was actually, for the most part, intact, except for some minor wreckage strewn around the site from where the gash was in the side of the craft. What do you know, Tommy?
Yeah, I agree with that. That's everything that I've heard. And I'd actually seen this interview before. There's also there's a woman that tells a very similar tale. She was apparently a little girl that said she was, in the area when this happened or whatever. But the stories kind of mesh. I'm almost 100% positive that Roswell happened. I think what probably happened was, for whatever reason, it could be something we did, it could be something they did, but 2 craft actually crashed into each other. One landed right there on the Brazel Ranch. The other one made it downrange, like Tim was saying, a little bit further before it finally crashed. And that one was probably in more better, let's say, in one piece than the other one, and more intact, let's say.
Right.
That's also the one where I believe that the living body was, or at least the living being, I should say.
Actually, there were two. One was seriously injured,
Right.
and one was
Right.
still alive with no
Right.
harm to it at all. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just Roswell. It's a typical American government screw up, and it starts from the ground up. Okay, and we've seen a pattern of this actually throughout history. What the American government does is some lower level military person, one of their public PR people, whatever, will release some information. Then their higher ups figure out what just happened. Then they go ahead and they retract that information and they give us a BS story, which is exactly what I believe happened in Roswell. Weather balloon. I mean, you're going to tell me that Major, what's his name? I'm so tired I can't think. Anyway, Major Marcel. You're going to tell me that he doesn't know the difference between actual wreckage on a nuclear base versus a weather balloon? Come on. And when they show the actual the photo of the newspaper, when you look at Jesse Marcel's face, I mean, he looks like he's got BS written all over it. I mean, think about that.
Like he's being forced to hide something.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's almost kind of obvious when you look at it, really.
Like he's under duress. Yeah.
Exactly. There's you're making me do this. You make me do something this lame, like that look in his face. You know what I mean?
Yes. What's really interesting is in this video he was mentioning a black sergeant and a man with reddish hair. And what I want to play is another clip that also mentions those same two people. Yep. And that will give you corroboration of the Roswell crash. Now, this information is from the Roswell crash in regards to the second crash that we just learned about in the interview with Gerald Anderson. So check this out, and we'll get this one going. And it has Colonel Corso and Glenn Davis, the Mortician from Roswell. Mm-hmm. So check this out. They're describing the aliens that they saw. Oops. Hold on a minute. Add to stream. Here we go.
The officer. Post-duty officer means that I was in control. For that night, I was the one that checked all the guards, checked all security areas. In fact, checked the whole post. I was the duty officer that night. And I went to the veterinarian section, and a sergeant I knew very well was sergeant of the guard that night. I told him, Sarge, how's everything around here? And he said, fine, sir. I told him, they told me to be careful to watch this area because you have a sense of something sensitive here. He said, you want to see it, sir? I told him, yeah, let's go look. And I knew this sergeant, right? He was master sergeant. I went back, and there was 5 crates there, like 5 or 6, I think it was 5. I lifted one up, and here's this body there and floating in foot. And I looked at it about 10, 15 seconds, not much more than that. So I put it back down and I said, Sarge, come on, get out of here now. I want to get you in trouble because I'm the duty officer. I can go around, walk around here. But you might get in trouble for coming back. Just come on, let's go. Come out with me. So we went out, and I told him, where did it come from, Sarge? He said, well, 5 trucks are coming through here from an airfield in New Mexico, and they're heading for Wright-Patterson Air Force. Now, in those days, there weren't all these big roads. Now, in those days, Route 40 was about the only cross-country route, and the route that they took was Route 40, going through Fort Riley, Kansas, and then up to Wright-Patterson Air Force. And I said, well, stay away from it, Sergeant. I don't want you to get in any trouble. I told him I can walk around and see that. So, and I started to figure, what was that? First, I thought it was a child because it was small. Then I looked at its head and all. Right, and this was only happened in a matter of seconds. Then I put the end back down, and the head was different. The arms were spindly. The body, it was gray. So right at that moment, I figured I don't know what this thing is. So like an intelligence business, I just better put it in the back of my head here and wait to maybe in the future I get corroboration so I can evaluate what it is.
I noticed that the doors were open, but what was odd about it, there was an MP standing beside each one of the vehicles in the back, standing there, and the doors were open. Naturally, I was curious, and I just happened to look in. That's when I saw some debris that looked like parts of a plane or something that they hadn't had a crash. Because I've seen them do this a lot of times, bring in pieces and the old ambulances in. No, they were. I noticed in two of the ambulances there was some debris that was probably 2.5 to 3 feet, long, probably high, that was propped up on the side of the ambulance there. They were kind of in the shape of maybe like a half a canoe. They were like the front part of a canoe, and but it looked like it might be aluminum, but it looked more like the metal looked more like stainless steel that had been heated. It was blue, kind of a bluish tint to it. But what was odd about it, it looked like around the curved part in the front of the canoe there was some designs or something that kind of reminded me of maybe some Egyptian signs or whatever. And it was probably about 3 inches in high, and probably the length of what the wreckage I saw, it looked like it was the length. And the same thing was in the other ambulance too. I mean, I saw practically the same thing. The pieces that were practically the same size, and the insignias looked like whatever that might be was part of the wreckage.
How did your friend feel about what she saw?
Well, I didn't know really until the next day. And I called out. I kept trying to get a hold of her because naturally I was curious and I wanted to know what was going on. And so I called out the next day, and then probably around 11:30, she said, "I know you've been trying to get a hold of me, but I haven't been available." And she said, "Why don't you meet me at the officers club? If you have time, meet at the officers club, and we'll have lunch. And I want to talk to you." So I went on out and met her. Beg your pardon?
Tell me about lunch.
Well, we both ordered. I'm not sure remember what we ordered, but it was just a light lunch. But she was so upset. She looked like she was in shock, is what she really talked like and looked like. And she said, I said, "Well, I was just curious. The only reason I want to talk to you, I was curious on what happened." And she said, "Well, you won't believe it." And she says, "I don't believe it either." But she said, "I got in a lot of trouble on this thing. I'm not real sure about this." But she said, then she pulled out of a little purse or little pocketbook, whatever she had there. She gave me a little diagram that she had drawn some figures of some arms and face and so on. She told me that this is what was in those, that it was a crash. It wasn't an airplane, but they didn't know what it was at that time. Yeah, but she said we have 3 bodies. There was 3 bodies. She said 2 of them were very mutilated. One looked like it might have walked out, or that it might have lived a little while. And she explained they were like 3.5 feet, 4 feet tall. The 2 of the bodies were you couldn't identify much because they were practically destroyed, and it looked like maybe that they might have been a predatory animal or something might have been doing some damage on the bodies too.
How did she explain the head, the hands?
Well, she said the head, and the little drawings that I had, the way she explained it and the way she drew it, that the heads were somewhat larger than a human heads. The hands were long, no thumbs. It was just the long, very delicate fingers at the end on the underside at the tip of each fingers was a pad-like maybe a little pad, but it looked like the skin had maybe little suction, like the little suction cups on those. On the no fingernails on the hands. The head, the lips were very just a long, narrow, more or less, not full lips like we would have in most of our people, but very fine line, very fine lips. There was no teeth. That was the inside of the mouth. It was kind of like a real, the gums, or maybe it was, she said to explain it, it was almost as hard as if it was rawhide, maybe, like that. The ears, there was only 2 small orifices on each side of the head with, looked like a couple of small lobes that might, some way that might cover both of those, but there was not a protruding ear. And also that the nose, there was only 2 small orifices in the nose. There was really no nose that was convex. It was all just flush with the face.
Was she emotional about all this?
Very much so. Very emotional. She would have to stop and drink water every once in a while, and also she never touched a meal. But all the time we were talking in an hour and a half that we were there, she never touched her meal.
Any other demonstrations of indications of consciousness?
Well, just, every once in a while she'd go like this, and wringing her hands, and she said it was the most I've never been so horrified in my life. I've never seen anything so gruesome in my life. Never smelt anything that smelt worse than my life. And she told me that when I saw her, she was leaving the room to go to the bathroom because she was deathly ill and was going to throw up.
Okay. In regards to this clip, one thing I want to note is the description of the hands was different from the one description from the St. Augustin crash. He said, Gerald Anderson said in the St. Augustin testimony that they had no pinky, but they had a thumb and 3 fingers. But in the Roswell, they said there was no thumb and 3 fingers.
We're also talking about the recollection of a child.
Yes.
So for whatever that's worth.
A 6-year-old. Yes, exactly. He was 6 when he saw that. So whether he was exact or not, we're not sure, but I'm pointing out that fact. And also the red-headed captain was mentioned in both clips.
Yep.
Which corroborates the fact that he was significant.
Present.
Yeah, he was significant in the recovery effort of both discs at both sites. So Josh, you actually missed both of the clips in regards to Roswell, but you can always come back and watch it again. We do have them on here. Tommy, what is your take on all this?
Well, I always believe the Mortician. I've always believed that guy's story, Glenn, what's his name? Glenn Davis, I think.
Oh, Glenn Dennis, sorry.
Yeah.
It was wrong.
I'm sorry? Glenn
Davis was wrong.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, anyway, I mean, the guy, I always believed him. There's something about him. He's told the story. I've seen him interviewed several times. He's a little testy about it, actually, sometimes. But I believe the guy. I really do. I mean, I think it's a great story. The redhead, here we go again. The redhead pops up again. Like you said, that's the second time, and that we can put him in this incident. Okay. So I believe that he probably existed. Philip Corso, he just has a lot of credibility for me. He really does. I mean, this is the guy that they had him in charge of a nuclear artillery battalion during the Cold War in Germany. I mean, you don't get in that position if you're a crackpot or anything like that. I mean, you got to be a super toe-to-the-line military man to get there. So again, I've always said with Corso, why why retire and create a bunch of crazy stories and go out like that? Why do that? If it's not true, what did he have to gain?
Right. He had nothing to gain.
I think he had more to lose.
He had everything to lose. I mean,
Yeah.
he could have lost his career. He could have lost his rank. He could have lost everything. He could have been shamed and ridiculed. I mean,
pensions could have been on the line, and you name it. I mean, who knows? They'll do anything to shut him up.
Right. I watched a video the other day of Major Donald Kehoe, and he was talking about how he had a lot of people coming out and saying, hey, this is happening, and yes, aliens exist, back in 1955 even. Okay, that was 8 years after Roswell. So you look at it this way. Suppression has been going on continually. I think it's still going on now, even though we've had the coming out, so to say, from the Pentagon and the Office of Naval Intelligence. But I personally believe that was a leak. In fact, David Fravor said that it was a leak that happened in connection with the 2004 Nimitz sighting and the gimbal and all of that they were leaks. They weren't meant to be made public. And because they were made public and people were clamoring for the truth and people were reckoning that they needed to have the true story, the United States Air Force, United States Navy, Department of Defense, all of them, all the ABC organizations were receiving a lot of heat. And because of that, they had to come out a little bit, give us a little tidbit.
Yeah.
But like I've said before, and I'll say it again, I do not believe that they are giving us the entire truth to show us the transparency that we're looking for.
One layer of the onion. One layer of the onion only.
I mean, sometimes you have to go back in history to get the truth. And that's what we are doing here tonight by going back to Roswell, by going back to St. Augustin, and hearing the encounters in regards to what actually occurred, because that tells you right there that we've had alien bodies in our possession for well over 60, 70 years.
Yep.
And we've had wreckage, not just once, but several times. And you figure that evening there were 2 wrecks. And as D.B. Cooper has mentioned, and Donald Goodall has mentioned, and a lot of other people in the chat have mentioned, there have been a lot of other crashes as well. Don't know if it's a smoking gun, Donald, but it is definitely a significant piece of information in regards to the evening of the Roswell event.
I can tell you this: growing up in the Dayton, Ohio area, we're talking about in the 70s, 80s, and with Wright-Patterson Air Force Base being there, we always heard the stories, about the wreckage being there, because that's where we did a lot of our reverse engineering. We probably still do at Wright-Pat. We also heard stories about there have been cryogenic tanks and things like that, cryogenic systems that have been installed underground underneath the base. Specifically to hold this kind of material like alien bodies and those kinds of things, and that there were bodies there. And I mean, if I heard that story growing up once, I heard that thousands of times, and so many times that I believe it.
Yeah, I do too. Okay, we're going to move on to something else. What we're going to do now is we're going to do a short UFO video review. We tried to do it last week, but we kind of got involved with our discussions and we couldn't go there. But today I've got a few that I'd like to take a look at. Not very many, but I just want you to take a look at them. You're waiting for J-Rod to pop up with his family. You never know. That might happen. They say they live longer than we do. So anyways, I've got a video and I'm going to bring it up. Let's see here, add to stream. Watch this. This is a super clear multicolored UAP over Houston, Texas, full raw video. Move on, case number 65255. Here we go. There's your frame of reference. I have no clue what that is. Yeah, Josh, if I can find any footage on that red and silver tube, I will let you know.
After we watched that drone show, what was it, last show I think it was, or the show before?
Yeah, well, yeah, this almost looks like drones, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean that blew my mind. I mean, if I saw that, I would not have identified that as drones if I had been standing there underneath that, probably.
Oh,
So
those blue ones spinning
yeah.
around, yeah.
So they can do some wild stuff with drones.
But this one here looks like it's flaring.
Yeah.
And when he goes way out and you see it zoom out, it doesn't seem to be multiple objects. It seems to be one. Watch when he zooms out. See? Looks like one. So if it was drones, you would think it would be closer in so that people could see them. But then again, Johnny, you may have seen this in person. Wow, that's cool. Yeah, digital cameras seem to distort a little bit.
Yeah, the video processors are crapping a lot of those cameras, and the camera does its best to figure out what it's looking at.
Right.
Sometimes you get erroneous results with stuff like that.
Yeah, so it may not be exactly what they're seeing,
Mm-hmm.
but it is a representation. Yeah, it could be multiple objects. Yes, it could be. Yeah, I have no idea what that is, but it could be multiple objects. Yes, that's what I'm thinking. I do have another video here real quick. Let's see here. This one here, a lady saw, okay, let's see here. Let me bring this up. Here we go. UFO searching ocean outside of Daytona Beach on 8/16/2020. What you need to note in this video is that it shows extreme acceleration. Kind of hard to see it, but it's right there.
I'm gonna analyze this when I get home. Cause that whatever that is looking for something. Damn, I lost it. Oh my God, it's flying so fast. Where the fuck did it go? Oh boy, I'm losing my mind.
Here's a 4:3 ratio zoom.
I'm gonna analyze this when I get home. Because that, whatever that is looking for something. Damn, I lost it. Oh my God, it's flying so fast. Where the fuck did it go? Oh boy, I'm losing my mind.
It just kept moving back and forth. She said in her statement that it was searching the ocean in a grid pattern. So, and then all of a sudden it shot off to the left at a high rate of speed. I have no idea what that was. So far away, it's kind of difficult to look at it. Okay, here's one here. Okay, here we go. This is using CE5 protocols to call in a UFO. Dr. Stephen Greer gets the UFO to interact with a laser.
So this is also very late after there are no satellites, and it's interacting with us again. And you can hear the detector just went off. Bloop, bloop. We're up at a site at about 7,000 or 8,000 feet when this happened. Very clear air, gorgeous, but cold. You need 6 layers of clothing, and this is in September, early September, I believe. Beautiful. And then you can see it doesn't move, it just disappears. This got pixelated. They were trying to zoom in. It's beyond the camera. This was a night scope monocular, 3rd generation, hooked to a digital camera.
Okay, well that one was kind of interesting. We've heard about people and seen videos on people laser pointing UFOs, but to see something react so blatantly like that gives credibility to the phenomenon. What do you think, Tommy?
I absolutely agree. Greer, he's another one of those guys that I actually believe in. I really do. Because again, I don't think he has any. He's a medical doctor and all that. Why would he want to trouble himself with something like this, unless it was true? And he's got some other videos where some very odd sky phenomenon popped up. The one on the beach, I'm sure you're familiar with it. Looks like those two big red balls, orbs showed up there. I just don't know how you can fake that. I don't know how you could do that. I mean, those were there for like a while, those orbs in that video. It wasn't like they're flares or something like that. Flares have got a very short lifespan. It was insane.
Well, I can honestly say, what with the skills of some people out there with CGI, it can be faked. But that video came out a while back.
And there were an awful lot of people there that were standing around there that seemed that he was actually ticked off at one guy that, he was in the way or whatever. But I mean, that looked awful real to me.
Yeah, it looked real.
Yeah.
Okay, I have another video here. It is a UFO near Mountain Hood, Oregon, observed by Alaska Airlines on February 28, 2020. You'll kind of capture it. It's going to be on the left-hand side over here. On the left of the mountain. Now I will zoom in on it.
I'm not one to complain about camera work because I understand that most people aren't professionals, but come on.
Yeah.
How do you lose how do you lose that?
Right.
It looks like it probably went behind the mountain, but I can't tell for sure because they jerked the camera right there.
Right. I think it went behind, but I'm not sure either. But there's the zoom in picture of it. And somebody had suggested it might be a plane, but if you look, you don't see a tail or anything like that, even with zoomed in images. It's just not indicative of a plane. But then again, you never know. Okay, so that's one. Okay, and then I have another one. Let's see here. This one here was done over Boulder, Colorado, back in 1990, but it's very interesting. I'm going to bring this one up. Here we go. Get a stream. Check this out.
Some of his neighbors also captured extraordinary images. These were taken by Anne and Bruce Morrison.
Look. Yo, look, it's right there. Just drop something out, Gary. Again.
Here it is, 4:3 ratio zoom, no audio. It'll show you. Now that light is on the front of the vehicle and it is traveling to the left side of the frame. It is not going to the right. Some people had suggested it might be a rocket, but it's not a rocket.
Nope.
And it just fades away. So there we go. That's that one. That one, in my opinion, was a disc, but I wasn't there, so I really can't make that assertion. Okay, let's see here. Do I have another one? Yeah, this one here, yeah, I find questionable, but I'm still going to bring it up. Here we go. As a man tries to catch a lightning strike during a storm, he captures this odd UFO UAP flying past. Now, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's legit, so let's take a look at it. Oops. Add to stream, sorry. Here we go. Watch near the chimney.
Wow.
I will slow that down so you can see it. I don't know what that is, but some people have speculated CGI. I don't know. If it is, it's really well done. Here it is, going slower. Take a look at that, Tommy. No, wait, I'm going to show you what the still images are so you can take a look at it.
I wonder if that could be an insect.
I don't know. It could maybe be. It'd have to be a pretty large one.
Or closer to the camera than we think.
They're thinking that it falls more along the lines of what people call rods.
Yeah,
I said, wow, if not a group of birds, what was that? Was my question. Mm-hmm. I personally think that if it's legitimate, it's unexplainable. I don't know what it is, but it's incredible, whatever it might be. Take a look right there. No, right there. See it? Mm-hmm. One guy said, "Nice fishing lure."
Mhm.
So that's this one. I have no idea what it is, guys. Your guess is as good as mine. And there it is right there. See, at first I thought it might be birds because these look like birds right here. These first two. But then the rest of them don't. They look like it's segmented and connected. And there's some type of filament holding it all together. So I don't know. It might be a bug. Might be something else. It's still an unknown, so it is a UFO. I hope that you enjoyed our little UFO video review. We will have more for you next week. Next week, we are going to be doing a live drawing where we're going to spin a wheel, and everybody who has entered for the free 24 by 36-inch wall poster will have their name on the wheel. And when we spin the wheel, we will do it live, so everyone will know it's a credible drawing. And whoever's picked, we will announce their name live, and then we'll go from there. I will put the timestamp from this live stream where the instructions on how to enter the giveaway is in the live stream. So it's easy for you to get there, so you don't necessarily have to watch the whole stream again to find it. And then I will also put a timestamp for the selections that you can choose from. The more the merrier. If you want to enter. You don't have to subscribe or anything like that. If you want to, that's great. Please subscribe to my channel if you want to. Please subscribe to Tommy Highway TV. He has a really awesome channel as well. And I want to thank everyone in the chat for putting up with our long videos today and turning out for what I thought was a very significant piece of evidence in regards to the Roswell incident. Thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate your time, and hopefully you will come again next week. Remember to enter. Don't forget. And we will get that prize out to the winner as soon as possible. All righty. Good night, everyone.
Thanks. Good night, guys. Thank you.